and our challenges and our opportunities, and to brainstorm around that in a place like Harvard.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So and for international students, one of the reasons why people oftentimes apply to a PhD, even if they are in their professional experience, they would have been more suited to a DRPH, is the issue of funding, right? They
Yeah.
know for a PhD, if you get admitted into a good program, most likely you'll be funded, right? But how is the funding mechanism at Harvard like for an international student? Uh, are you automatically given funding for your program, stipend? How does that work?
Look, let me, before I answer that question directly, I think that there's two things. This comparison between PhD and DRPH, their levels, like they're still opportunity for us to get clear. So a lot of people still don't understand that I am a doctoral student,
Mm-hmm.
right? They immediately say you're a PhD student, and
Yeah.
we automatically assume that being a PhD student is a little bit higher than being
Uh-huh.
a doctoral student,
Yeah.
which is, we know the truth. I don't think that's the case in any
Mm-hmm.
way. I think that it's a difference in training, and the training is the with a PhD student, as you all know, is the rigor of research,
Mm-hmm.
and a pathway into academia.
Yeah.
Whereas with us, we still get the same training, or a significant amount of training in research and methodology, yet we are able to take all of the theory and actually develop something that has more of a practical application. And like you're saying now, it's so blurry, wherein you've
Yeah.
got doctoral students who are actually, doing a lot of research. And because there are so many areas of similarities, I find it very unfortunate that from the funding area, DRPH students continue to suffer. So universities like Boston University offer full scholarship. They're one of
Yeah.
the few.
Mm-hmm.
There are
Mm-hmm.
other programs, I believe, in the US that will give you a full scholarship. They're far and few and in between. And when you look at their curriculum, I actually just think they're PhD programs. Like, this is what I actually think. I'm like, this might as well just be a PhD program. I'm trying to
Yeah.
understand a component that has more of a, but okay. But for Harvard, I got a 50% scholarship. So, but my tuition every year it's over $51,000. So, if they're paying for half of it for the first 2 years of your program, you still have to come
Yeah.
up with $51,000. Not even 51, 73 or 76 something, $78,000 of tuition. Because for the third year, you've got to pay the full $25,000 for yourself.
Wow.
And so that's challenging. And then on top of that, that's all you get. That's the only scholarship I got, was the 50% off. And then once you get in, you can apply for different grants and different opportunities, which can offset your costs. But you've got to be very on top of the
Yeah.
fellowships. You've got to be
Yeah.
very on top of
Mm-hmm.
the grants. Otherwise, but when you're declaring as an international student, because I'm not a US citizen, when you're declaring and looking for your visa, you have to prove that you have money for the 3 years of tuition, as well as your living expenses, which, if you think about your living expenses for 3 years, you're going over $150,000. And so how I have funded my education is that I have taken loans.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have as students the opportunity to take loans. So by the time I graduate, I'm going to be about $75,000 in debt,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's really hard to swallow because I don't get a stipend. I leave in debt. And sometimes the fellowships that you get, they don't go towards tuition. They go towards research. They go towards travel for your research. They go towards, just surviving, because it's so expensive in a place like Boston. So it is not an easy choice
Yeah.
to do a
A
DRPH.
DRPH.
You
That's true.
really have to want to do it.
Yeah, most certainly, and for the people I've spoken to who say I want to do a PhD, and I tell them, send me your CV, and they send me their CV, and all I see is practical work, and I tell them, why don't you consider DRPH? And they said, no, we can't fund it, we can't pay the fees. So it's, that obstacle is driving a lot of people to towards a field that originally they wouldn't have gone into. So as you said, I'm hoping that these programs would reconsider and then start offering some real stipend. It's also because sometimes they feel DRPH students or candidates are more of mid-career people, so they might have accumulated some amount of cash to pay their own fees, right? But I think that should have a relook. Well, thanks for sharing that detail. And as you said, I've had also a couple of people who have coached get into Boston, and they got at least 75% of their fees waived, and sometimes with a role that would help them also offset their stipend and all those things. So I think doing a proper research is also equally important. But if you have the means to offer, and if you have the means to pay, and you have admission to a top program like Harvard, of course, it's gonna be worth it, right? 70K, 75K, it's nothing compared to what you will get after the program, so it's all worth it. Now, I want us to look at the application process itself for DRPH. Could you walk us through, your experience at the time that you were applying for the DRPH program? That's like 2 years ago. So how was your experience like applying to a DRPH program?
For full disclosure, because it's on my LinkedIn as well, I applied twice before I got into the program. I got into the program my second application, and actually the first application, I actually put my rejection letter on LinkedIn, and I got a lot of support and just a lot of love from the community. But it was very important to show that these things are really hard.
Yeah.
And it really doesn't have much sometimes to do with whether you are deserving of it or not, or you're qualified or not. Mine literally came down to someone, my last interviewer asking me what the value of Harvard was to me at that time. And I actually didn't understand his question, because I'm like, I'm an African woman who is trying to do this work. What do you mean, what's the value of Harvard to me? But he couldn't see it. And that was the only difference. And he saw somebody else as capable. Well, 2 years ago, the application, in my experience, and I know it's changed this year from friends who have gotten an acceptance into the program, into this new cohort.